One of the things that gets brought up a lot in the comment section about my 79 series Landcruiser is why do I still run the stock wheels and tires from the factory? Why do I keep running them, and why haven't I gotten an aftermarket set of wheels and tires? Well, in today's video, we're going to be talking about it, so stick around. It's going to be a good one. So here is my dual cab Workmate 79 series Landcruiser, and as you can see, I've done a bit of work to it. You know, I've got a bit of bar work on there. I've got the canopy on the back. I've done the whole interior, roof rack, UHF, the whole shebang. But guys, one of the things that keeps getting brought up a lot is that I've done a full build on this vehicle, but I haven't changed out these wheels and tires. And as you can see here, that these wheels and tires are very, very thin. And you know, one of the common things that I get asked a lot is, well, it doesn't quite look that great because on the back here you can see it doesn't really fill out those rear arches on my custom canopy. So we're going to be talking a little bit about that today, and you can see just how skinny those wheels and tires are. So now that you kind of have a bit of an idea as to how the 79 stands and sits today, we're going to be talking about why I haven't changed these wheels and tires just yet. So one of the dilemmas with getting a new vehicle is that you actually get a new set of wheels. So you get a new set of tires and a new set of rims. Now, the problem with that is that changing them out really early is kind of a waste to me. Like, for example, when I got my FJ Cruiser and I got my GU Patrol, both secondhand, the tires on them are shot. Most people aren't going to replace 2 to 3 grand worth of wheels and tires before they sell their vehicle. So often the first thing that I do when I get a second-hand vehicle in the past is I change the wheels and tires. It makes sense, but when you get a new vehicle, you get new wheels and tires. So what do you do in that situation? Well, for me, it seems like a big waste of money to just go out and buy a brand new set of wheels and tires straight away. Because if you do that, say you do get a brand new set of wheels and tires that you like, that are the offset that you want, and you know, runs the size tire that you wish, a 33 or a 35, or maybe even higher or lower, depending on what your taste is and what your purposes are. The problem with that is that you're going to sell the original wheels and tires, and unfortunately they just don't sell for much. So for example, the tires on my 79 are probably worth, if you were to buy them, they're probably worth, you know, 1,500 to a couple grand. But unfortunately, because they're, you know, a stock tire, not many people want to run that tire size. They want to go up a size. But you're wasting kind of 2 grand of tire, at least in tire costs, just to replace them straight away. And most people sell them online through the Facebook Marketplace or something similar, and they often sell them for, well, what would be a loss if you were to purchase them brand new. So to me, it's a little bit of a waste of money to be able to just straight away get your vehicle, just swap the tires and wheels out straight away. You're going to be losing a little bit of value there. So to me, one of the things that I wanted to get across to you guys is one of the reasons why I haven't swapped out these wheels and tires is because I'm trying to get a little bit of kilometers out of them first before I swap over to an aftermarket set of wheels and tires. The next thing is something that not a lot of people want to admit, and it's the fact that the engineers that create these vehicles and that design these vehicles actually do know what they're doing. So this vehicle is designed for 2 different sets or 2 different setups of wheels and tires. It's either going to be the Workmate setup or it's going to be the GXL setup. But you know, a lot of people, they want to put a new set of wheels and tires on there, but they have to be mindful that it does change the characteristics of the vehicle. The vehicle will drive differently, it will handle differently, it will perform differently in every aspect, on-road, off-road. Whether it's better or not, it depends. It's always a trade-off. So for example, these wheels and tires that I have on here, they are a 33-inch diameter wheel and tire, but they are also a very skinny wheel. So that's often not desirable for a lot of people because they want to have that nice chunky look. They want it to fill out the wheel arches and they want it to look good as well, but also they want to have a little bit more tread width. So unfortunately with that though, you're going to lose out on kind of like perceived power. So because there's more rolling resistance, you're going to feel like that the car and the vehicle is underpowered. Now my vehicle is still under new car warranty, so I'm not going to be going out and getting a tune on it straight away because I would lose my warranty. So for me, I'm not going to put a huge set of wheels and tires straight away on the vehicle when I know that I can't, one, tune the vehicle to be able to compensate for the extra rolling resistance, but also two, I don't want to lose out on my new car warranty. So there's a couple of things just to kick off this video that I was thinking that I just want to share with you guys about the reasons why I have kept my stock wheels and tires, but there is a little bit more to it that I think you guys might find interesting. I was actually quite pleasantly surprised in a lot of the videos that I make of the 79 series, whether it's camping or whether it's build videos. I'm often surprised at the number of people that comment as to how they actually like the stock wheels and tires on this vehicle, and that they themselves run the skinnies, they're called. So that's something that kind of shocked me a little bit, is that a lot of people actually like the look of the stock wheels and tires on this vehicle. And I have to say, guys, I am one of those people. I think that the kind of circle steel design is something that really speaks to me. It also looks a lot like how the original Landcruisers should look, because that's how they come from the factory. But a lot of people forget that because everyone is so quick to change out these wheels to an aftermarket one that, you know, looks a little bit more fancy and, you know, has a little bit more maybe status to it and fills out those arches a little bit more. So for me, running the stock wheels and tires has been a little bit refreshing. There's a lot of people in the comment section as well saying, Mark, keep those wheels and tires on there because they look exactly how it should look on the Landcruiser. So that was just something that was a little bit of a pleasant surprise to me. So one major consideration for running stock wheels and tires is actually fuel economy. So on my 79 series, as you guys know, I run stock wheels and tires on that. On my FJ Cruiser as well, I've got on the driveway, I also run the stock wheel and tire setup and sizes. But my FJ Cruiser is actually more thirstier than my 79 series Landcruiser. My FJ gets around 12 litres per 100 kilometres, give or take, and my Landcruiser in its current form, the way it sits right now, gets around 11.5 litres per 100 kilometres. So when I was running just the stock heavy-duty Toyota tray, no roof rack, nothing like that, I was getting around 10.5 litres per 100 kilometres. So adding the extra weight, but also the wind resistance with the roof rack, the rooftop tent, and also the extra size of the canopy because it sticks out from the sides of the vehicle a little bit as well. You know, I'm only losing about 1 litre per 100 kilometres, which I'm actually really happy with. And something that I need to consider is I'm doing a lot of really long trips next year. You know, I've got Gari on my list of things to do. I've got some really, really long trips, potentially going down to the high country next year as well. So I've got some really, really long trips planned. And if I'm running a really wide wheel and tire setup, that extra rolling resistance is really going to hurt the fuel economy. So a lot of people don't really know just how good these new 79 series are on fuel, especially when you run the stock wheel and tire setup. Now, I can't comment on how the GXL setup works because I know that it's a smaller diameter and it is a wider wheel. So I can't comment on how that works. But for me, this is kind of like the perfect setup. I've got a 33-inch wheel and tire setup. And it's also like really good for deflating as well. When I get onto some of the tougher stuff and start getting on some of those bumpier tracks, it actually deflates really, really well and really softens up the ride. So I've got that tire profile to really give me that extra little bit of cushion that the stock suspension, because I still have stock suspension under here, that the stock suspension just doesn't really provide. So having that extra diameter and also still being quite a skinny tire just allows me to air down, and it also increases the footprint of the tread pattern. It allows that as well as softens that profile of the tire a little bit just by giving me a little bit of extra bounce in that tire, so a little bit of extra leeway there. So that's something that I have appreciated, taking this off-road, deflating the tires a little bit. It does allow me to have, just because it's a 33-inch, I'm able to deflate a little bit, and I'm still not really, it's not costing me much on fuel as well. Unfortunately, one of the things that people do is they go out and they get an aftermarket set of wheels and tires, and it adds a huge amount of weight to the vehicle as well that not a lot of people know about, but it also increases that rolling resistance, which is going to be one of the major things that will hurt your fuel economy at the end of the day. Again, something that not a lot of people really take into consideration when upgrading their wheels and tires is the extra wear and tear on the components that everything links to the wheels and tires. So everything that links those wheels and tires is going to have some sort of additional wear and tear. Even the engine moving more mass because you've got more rolling resistance. You know, the suspension components, you know, everything under the vehicle is going to be put under a little bit more wear and tear just because you are adding just that little bit of extra stress to the components. Anytime you're adding weight or resistance, you're going to find that you're going to be replacing a little bit more and you're going to be doing a little bit more maintenance on those components. So that's something that not a lot of people think about, and it's again a reason why the Toyota engineers and the engineers of your four-wheel drives have put specifications in place for you to follow. So anytime that you go outside of those specifications, you are going to add additional wear and tear to the vehicle. It's also something to consider is warranty, because you may be, potentially you have to talk to your dealerships as well about how adding a bigger wheel and tire will affect your warranty and what part of the vehicle it will affect the warranty on. So again, kind of to do with rolling resistance is the fact that when you are trying to maneuver around certain obstacles, doesn't matter where you are, it is a lot harder to do that, especially when stationary with a larger wheel and tire setup, because you've got a bigger contact patch that you're trying to move with that steering wheel. So that's something to consider as well. In the background here, I just moved the steering wheel a little bit and just moved those tires around a little bit for the thumbnail that I just took. So it was a lot easier to do that in my 79 because it's got a really small contact patch there. And when I try to do that in my FJ Cruiser, it is a lot of work because the wheels on that, the tires on that, and the contact patch is a lot bigger, so it's a lot more work and a lot more effort. So you know, it is a lot easier to maneuver around certain and tight obstacles and in tight positions. It's a lot easier to do that in the 79 series with stock wheels and tires. So again, something to consider. So you're probably thinking, Mark, that's all well and good to run a stock skinny tire setup and wheel and tire setup, but what about some of the downsides? Well, the downsides are pretty closely linked to the positives. So as an example, you know, obviously one, aesthetics. You know, it doesn't look as good. You know, like the wheels in the back of my 79, it doesn't fill out the guards and it doesn't look that great. I know that. You know, it's just one of the compromises that you make, you know, and people are going to be on either side of the aftermarket camp, or they're going to be on the skinny or, you know, stock tire setup. You know, people are going to be on either side, and there's no real right or wrong because it depends on your situation. But going through some of the, I guess, positives and negatives and weighing it up a little bit on the negative side, because I've only gone through the positives, is that, yeah, it doesn't look as great. Another thing is that, yeah, although you get better fuel economy with the stock tire setup or a skinnier tire setup, you are also going to be losing out on grip. That is the only place under those tires, that is the only place that you're going to get any sort of contact with the road. You know, with your rolling, you know, however much vehicle you've got, you know, whether you're towing a caravan or you've got, you know, extra weight on your Landcruiser like I do, that contact patch is the only thing that's keeping you on the blacktop or on the tracks and keeps you from going off it. So you may need to consider that if you're doing a lot of off-roading, for example, or you're doing a lot of stuff around wet environments where you need to have a larger contact patch, that may be something that you'll look into, is getting a wider tire setup. For me, I've used this vehicle in really wet conditions. We've had a horrendous wet season this year, and also the wet season is back again, you know, and I've been driving the vehicle around in the wet, and it has been fine on the stock tire setup in the wet, but I can't comment on doing the really, really tough stuff where, you know, you're going up and rock crawling and doing that sort of stuff. That's not really what I do. I do more touring and a little bit of off-roading and a bit of beach work as well. That's kind of like what I do, a bit of sand work. That's kind of what I do in my typical sort of off-roading adventures. Obviously camping as well, so as long as I can get to the campsite, I'm sweet. But that kind of gives you a bit of an idea as to, you might want to widen your tire setup if you want a little bit more of that contact patch. But also another thing is for stability. I've got a lot of weight up top in my setup, and I know that, and I know that if I was going to be doing some rock crawling, the weight would be going everywhere. I've done some off-roading where I've been off Canberra. I really feel that weight that I've got in the rooftop tent especially. I really feel that weight trying to move me from side to side. So that may be something I'll look into in the future, and we'll get to that shortly, but having that wide wheel and tire may just give you a little bit more stability with having those wheels at a lower offset. Pushing that away from the midline of the four-wheel drive will give you a little bit more stability. So that's something to consider as well. Now, if I've missed any of the cons to running a stock wheel and tire setup, make sure you put them down in the comment section. I'm always willing to circle back to the topics, and I often do. So make sure you put that down in the comment section, and I would love to hear from you guys. But the question still remains: am I going to be going with an aftermarket wheel and tire setup in the future? Well, at this point, I would actually say yes. I really do want to try out how this vehicle handles with a wider wheel and tire setup. I really think that, one, for looks as well, it is a little bit about the aesthetics for me. You know, I really like getting in my vehicles, and I like walking away from them when I park them up and see, you know, just how good it looks. So for me, it is a little bit about the looks. But the other thing that I'm a little bit concerned about is just the stability, especially when I'm doing some sand work, and I've got a lot of beach work coming up in the future. So I really want to make sure that I'm getting that rear setup especially really dialed in and making sure that I've got that wider stance, which I'm just missing at this point. I feel like that rear is just a little bit too narrow. I'm not too concerned. I get a lot of questions about people asking, does the difference in the front wheel to the back wheel, the tractor, does that make much of a difference? I haven't noticed that at this point. I probably won't do any diff corrections at this point, but one of the things that I do worry about is the fact that that rear setup, that rear wheel and tire setup is just a little bit too on the narrow side, and my canopy and my rooftop tent and awnings and all this stuff, it all sits on the outside of the track. So anytime I hit anything off camber, it's going to want to tip and roll. So that's something that I am really mindful of, and it's something that I want to give a crack. And it might end up being that I have a set of stock wheels that I use for maybe the longer road trips, and it may be that I have a wider setup that I use for more off-roading when I'm maybe at home, or when I'm doing some beach work, or if I know that I'm going on a trip that's going to require a lot of sand work, or it's going to require a lot of loose surfaces. I might stick on the wider wheels and tire setup. So that's kind of what I'm thinking at this point. Will I change the design of the wheels and tires, especially the wheels? Will I change the look of the wheels? Probably, yeah, maybe. I really like the look of the kind of stock sort of steel look. I might go for maybe a black wheel in the future, black steely or something like that. Not sure. I am open to trying out some alloys because that may keep the weight down a little bit, but I've kind of found that the weight of my alloy wheels on my FJ, they kind of are still pretty heavy, so I might just maybe widen my stock rim setup just a little bit, just so I can fit a bigger wheel or bigger tire on that wheel. But at this point, I'm open to an aftermarket set of wheels and tires, and it's probably something I'm going to be looking at in the next 2 to 3 months. So, and guys, I will be reporting back to you on how that setup has gone, and I am always one to say if things don't work out, I will absolutely tell you guys, and the stock wheels will go back on. Or, who knows, maybe the aftermarket setup that I go for, it's not going to be very extreme, and it's not going to be, pushing the limits of anything, but, the aftermarket setup that I put on there, it actually may be a better setup for me and my needs. So I will report back to you guys as always, and we will circle back to the topic of stock wheels versus aftermarket wheels. And guys, for now, that's it. If you have any questions, put them down in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you very shortly in the next video. Take care.